Welcome back to another episode of the Pax What She Said podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Maggie Loney, joined finally by Perry Goldstein. She's back, everybody.
I'm
We
back.
made it.
I'm back. Thank you to Dusty and to Andrew for subbing in my stead. Very kind. Appreciate it so much. But I'm back. Hello.
Yeah. What a game. We were talking about this a little bit right before we hit record. We'll dive into it. But Packers traveling in week 7 to Arizona to take on the Cardinals. Cardinals started the season 2-0 on a 4-game losing streak now. Very banged up team. A very, very winnable game for the Packers. But let's just start with opening thoughts. Like how much we know about this Cardinals team.
My first thought is, how's it week 7? You
Very
said that.
fair.
I'm like, excuse me, what? That's not right. It's been almost 2 months of the season. That's crazy. My initial thoughts vary on which quarterback is playing. Kyler Murray is a limited participant and is questionable. If not, it's the backup Jacoby Brissett. And that really changes the calculus, doesn't it? I mean, it certainly changes the game plan, although both are mobile, just very different kinds of mobile. I think Matt LaFleur had a pretty good quote about this too, where he was like, that's just a lot for the guys to take in because you're basically game planning for 2 different quarterbacks. So it should be interesting to see if that's like an impact at all, or when, because we're recording this Thursday morning, at what point we know who they're going to be playing against.
Yeah, so let's kind of do an injury run through here. We can dive into the Packers injuries later, but let's start with the Cardinals here. You said it, obviously, Kyler Murray is still kind of going through. Head coach said when he's ready to play, he'll play, but that was all the intel we got, right? We have no idea what that means and where he's at with that foot injury and his recovery. Another big piece for that offense, probably, arguably the biggest piece of the offense, Marvin Harrison Jr. is in the concussion protocol. He's limited, but we don't know what that means, right? There's like the 5 phases that they have to clear to be able to play in a game. We don't know where he's at in the process. He could clear Sunday morning and then all of a sudden he gets to play, but no kind of intel as to whether or not he's trending in the right direction. It sounds like he could play, but we have no idea there. Other wide receivers, Zay Jones is a DNP with a knee injury, so they're starting 2 wide receivers potentially not playing. Obviously, we know James Conner, the running back, was already on injured reserve, Trey Benson on injured reserve, and then their kind of third running back, DeMercado, is also questionable to potentially play. And then their 4th string backup, Bam Knight, is also on the injury report with a knee injury. So a lot of these guys we expect to play, a lot of these depth pieces, but a very banged up roster. And that's just on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, oh man, I like the key here is just like stopping whatever connection there is between the quarterback and Trey McBride on defense. I think the defense, if they can get back to the form we saw early in the season, which I thought they looked like close to that against the Bengals, then I'm not like really that concerned about the defense being able to shut down this Cardinals offense. Like you said, they are missing pretty much every main cornerstone piece right now, except for Trey McBride. And so that he's going to be the focal point of this offense going into this week, especially if it's Jacoby Brissett. Like that is the security blanket. He's one of the best tight ends in the league. So you just focus solely on like protecting the middle of the field where he likes to cook, and I think they'll be okay. I don't know how much you know about the Cardinals offensive line, but if the pass rush can get after whomever is in the pocket, then that's just going to be a long day for them on offense.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of like, we looked at the Cowboys, right? And we said, obviously they're without CeeDee Lamb, but you still have Dak Prescott, who, when he's on, is on.
Which we saw.
Which we noticed. Yeah, we were very aware of him being on.
Witnessed.
But for the Cardinals, like Jacoby Brissett is a very serviceable backup in the NFL and arguably could be a starter in some spots. But the threat, I don't think, is necessarily the same, right? Like they just don't feel like they would have the horses to make this thing go. Although I will say that this is a surprising Cardinals offense, like, statistics-wise, and they haven't played necessarily some world beaters here. They played the Titans, which the Titans, but,
Skewing everything.
um, like, they're 6th on 3rd downs still, so they are moving the ball efficiently. They're 4th on 4th downs, 19th in the red zone, so that's kinda where they drop off is, putting points on the board, but
Right.
Jacoby Brissett came in last week. They had 400 yards of total offense against the Colts, and the Colts have a really nice defense. So, I mean, I
Yeah.
do think that sometimes there's, like, a spark plug when you mix some personnel, like, Jacoby coming in was probably kind of invigorating for the offense. It's something different.
Right.
Don't necessarily see that being the case again this week. I just think that
The shine's worn off after 2 weeks.
yeah,
Yeah.
honestly, we've just seen this, and the Packers defense is so close that I think this is arguably the week that we see them able to start putting it together.
Yeah. I mean, also now, like, against the Colts, like Jacoby knows them very well. It's also the first week he's playing in the Cardinals offense. So there's that like element of surprise, but now there's tape. And like I said earlier, I just really think it's like very limited on what this Cardinals offense can do. Like, how different is it really going to be from last week for Matt LaFleur to kind of, and Jeff Hafley more specifically, to kind of game plan against. I think the red zone stat you said is quite key. I mean, even if they are able to put up yardage, which I'm sure they will be able to do, is holding them to without getting in the end zone. They'll win this game. Regardless, I think they win this game, but they'll certainly win this game if they are able to just like hold them to field goals all day.
Yeah, so let's flip a little bit here and talk about well, first let's start with Packers injuries because there's quite a few of those unfortunately here as well. Um, Zach Tom is able to play, it sounds like, but it sounds like he was incredibly sore and, is technically questionable going into Sunday. Like he made it through the game obviously against Cincy, but whether or not he potentially should have played, like he's just it's a lot of lingering symptoms,
Right.
right? And I don't know if you want that from your right tackle for the entirety of the season, but I also don't know with the severity of the injury if it's something that is going to linger, right? I don't know if sitting out and resting for a week is going to do him any good.
Right.
Right? Like I don't know how those injuries heal. So he's a question mark. Aaron Banks is limited, but we expect him to play. Anthony Belton is back practicing, which I think is a good sign to at least have him available if necessary. Javon Bullard has been a full participant. Brandon McManus not kicking right now. So you can tell why the Packers, brought in a backup who had a very, very good game. So kudos to him. But Jordan Morgan is limited. Lucas Van Ness did not practice. So that's,
I think he's going to be out for a few weeks.
I think so too. I think that was too significant of an injury. And then Devontae Wyatt is still a DNP, which is really painful to have Wyatt and Lucas Van Ness both missing.
I was thinking that those are some two big hits to the defensive line.
Yeah.
So either the backups are going to have to step up or the starters are going to have to like pick up some slack. I am curious to see what that rotation looks like without both of them in. I think that'll be really interesting just to like see who Jeff Hafley decides to utilize more in each of their roles. The other piece, the Zach Tom injury is interesting to me because they have a pretty tough schedule down the stretch now, and like they've had their bye week. So do you go with preservation or do you go with, to your point, like maybe playing is helping him like work through some of that tenderness and some of that soreness? I'm going to lean maybe not. Just like football's a really, really grueling, body intensive, hurtful sport. I'd like to think that like he's out there because he can be, but then they definitely put him out there too soon after the original injury and re-aggravated it. And I think the last thing I'd want to see is him re-aggravate it in 2-3 weeks. And then he's out again for 2-3 weeks. And then we're at like the critical point in the season of December where he's needed like more than ever. So yeah, that decision will just be interesting. But I personally lean like I don't mind if he takes this week off to get fully healthy.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that there is you would have to imagine that if it was something that he could continuously re-injure, he would not be out there. So maybe that's part of it, is that there's no structural damage that he can do at this point, and it's just a long road to recovery from like a gutting through the pain kind of injury. But
Mm.
I'm not a doctor. I have no clue.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
but you
totally.
would assume, right, that if it was something that he could just continuously keep re-injuring and, to your point, missing repeated time, that he would have been shut down, go on IR
Yeah,
early in the season, take your bye week, get some rest, and then come back for the stretch. Like you said, you've got the Steelers on Sunday Night Football the following week. You've got the Panthers at home, but then you've got the Eagles, you've got the Vikings, you've got the Lions, you've got,
exactly.
like it's a those are winnable, or games that you need in the win column. So
Yes.
he's a big piece of that. But Packers offense looks like it's getting the pieces put together, right? I still
Yeah,
don't think we've seen them at like full throttle, which is kind of
yeah.
fun. But first in the league in third down, seventh in the league in fourth down conversion, sixth in the league in red zone scoring, eighth in total points, averaging 26 points a game. Like
Wow.
I feel like that's not I feel
Mhm.
like they haven't hit their ceiling, which is so
No.
fun.
And the run game is, like, just starting to get going.
It's
I
just
think
ticking,
against
yeah.
the Bengals was, like, the first time where I was like, "Okay, Josh. Okay, like, we're hitting it. We're getting there." And now I think his yardage at this point in the season is actually higher than it was last season. Like, he's on track to surpass his yardage from the 2024 season. And, like, to the eye test, it's looked like it's been a kind of tough go the first, 6 weeks of the season. So to see that is like, whoa. Also, I just think speaks to how amazing of a player he is. Um, and Matthew Golden. Oh my god. Um, I am curious. I know Christian Watson is on the injury report as a limited participant, and I'm sure he won't play in this game. But I'm so excited to see how Matt LaFleur fits him in with Matthew Golden on the field, because to the point of, like, you have two insanely speedy field stretchers, but you also have two guys who are, like, excellent in space. So to just, like, mix and match them together is going to be super, super fun. But that's for a later episode, I guess, when he's actually playing. But it's a positive to see him practicing like he is.
Yeah, the first person I thought of when you said that was obviously good friend of the show, Dusty Evely, and mesh concepts. Like,
Yes.
if you look up mesh, if you don't know what a mesh concept is and you Google it, there's literally a picture of Matt LaFleur. Like, that is like his, like, you have Matthew Golden and Christian Watson, and when Jaden Reed comes back, like,
Oh, yeah. Game
just
over.
just
Game over.
beautiful.
It's
Um,
funny because people again, I watched the Bengals game late. Like, I already knew that they had won. I was at a wedding this weekend, so I didn't watch it live. And I was watching it obviously under the guise of knowing that they won and, like, what the final score was, which I think is, like, a very different rewatch,
yeah.
right? And I knew that people were kind of upset about how the game went and the final score, and that, like, they let the Bengals hang around and da da da. And I don't know if it's my lens thinking, like, it never looked particularly close to me. Um, but I also feel like it's October, and to your point, when we were talking about, like, all these exciting things that this offense is going to be able to do when some of these pieces come back, and, like, that's going to be in December when it matters. Also, this was just, like, an uncommon AFC opponent, and, like, those games are always weird. But I think watching them work out the kinks on offense in the first part of the season has been really fun, because you can really see the development over the course of the weeks. And of course, you like to see it continue, and you hope it does this week against the Cardinals. And I think against this defense in particular, it will, they will continue to build on what they've been doing. But there's still so much more to go, both in, I'm sure, scheme and concepts that Matt LaFleur has, but also getting some players back to, like, throw some wrinkles out there. So I'm not crazy concerned really when the Packers, beat the Bengals 27-18. I think it's okay in October.
I mean, I think it's the same concept we're talking about with Jacoby Brissett against the Colts, right? Like, Joe
Right.
Flacco comes in, and it was kind of like the flip to what we saw in Cleveland, where you had no weapons for him to throw to, but he had nice protection with that offensive line. And then you get to Cincy, and he has two of the best receivers in the entire NFL,
Right.
but a bad offensive line.
Right.
And if he can get the ball out, like we know that those receivers are capable of making plays against this Packer secondary. And we saw them get their opportunities. And I think what we're waiting to see kind of, come to fruition is the Micah Parsons of it all, right? Like he is just a split second away from so many big opportunities. And I think it's coming and I think it'll build. I don't want to say it's coming this week because without Devontae Wyatt and LVN, like these are pieces
Right.
that help him to get there. But
Right.
the impact that he has, even if it's not necessarily visible on the stat sheet, like he is still wrecking games, right? Like I think that is the piece that maybe is kind of being understated from this defense as a whole because they,
Right.
you see the Bengals hang around and you're like, what's wrong with this defense? Well, it was still 18 points, right? Like,
Right. And I think people overestimated a little bit like what one player is going to do. Like he is wrecking games, to your point. He's getting like there are games where you think that he didn't do anything and he had double digit pressures. And what he brings to like the rest of the defensive line and allowing them to get their opportunities too. Like I never expected him to come in and have 4 sacks a game. Like that's
you didn't?
unrealistic. That's no, like that's and it feels like that's what people were expecting is like he would just like wrecking ball. And I'm sure there will be a game that he has like that. I have no doubt about it. But it's not going to be every game. And so I think we need to adjust a little bit like what we think Micah Parsons should, I hate that word should, but like should be able to do because he's been excellent.
Yeah, and I think that you look at like Miles Garrett and these guys, like the upper echelon of players, and it's like a different way of calling the game, right? Like you could look and see Micah Parsons being held on basically every play that he's
Yeah.
in, because that's just
Yeah.
the caliber of player. It happens to Micah Parsons. I'm sure it happens to like Aiden Hutchinson, TJ Watt. Like that's just what this is. But yeah, I do think that looking at like this Cardinals defense, Calais Campbell somehow still in the league and having an incredible impact, like the
I
ageless
love that man.
wonder.
I love that man.
It's incredible. Like he's arguably like the biggest piece of that defense at this point, like with the way he's performing. Will Johnson has had a really nice season at corner. They obviously have Josh Sweat now, came over from the Eagles, but
Buddha,
Buddha still, yeah. Although he's having
a
not
down
his
year.
best year, yeah, but
Mm,
you know, it's
what are you
hard
gonna
when
do?
your pieces are rotating in and out too. Like
Totally.
there's so many injuries to that Cardinals team that they almost like don't fit on your screen, which is just
Ugh, that sucks. The season can get so derailed like that. But I don't know that there's any like insane strong point of this Cardinals defense that I'm like, okay, like watch out for that because that can wreck the game. I really feel like if the Packers play their brand of football here, that they'll be able to move the ball and score points.
so let's shift then to final thoughts and score predictions
Okay.
because I think that this could very easily be a game that the Packers put it all together.
Mm,
Um, but I also, we've said that the last couple of weeks, but
yeah.
I feel more comfortable somehow about this game than I have, I think, for the entire season
Yeah.
about like going into this one and coming out with a win.
No, totally. Totally. Um, I'm with you. I'm thinking like 31-17. Again, like not discrediting the Cardinals and their ability to put up points, especially if the Packers get up early and hold on to that lead and kind of, I know fans have not been particularly enjoying this, but like letting that, they'll like, get that like kind of fourth quarter touchdown where it doesn't really matter. And we all know that there's been like a steady level of domination all game is kind of where my head is at for this one.
I'm going to say 38-20. I
Okay.
feel like the Packers are going to move the ball very efficiently. Um, and just, the defense has been holding, they're first in the league right now in run defense, which is,
Wow.
a crazy stat, right? To hear,
Yeah, wow.
especially with the injuries to like Devontae Wyatt, the loss of TJ Slayton, like pieces that had
Mhm.
been really helpful and making an impact. So first in league in run defense, and we know the Cardinals defense is struggling. So they're going to have to try to get opportunities through the air. And I just don't see them kind of being able to hang with this Packers offense that I think is still kind of slowly building and putting things together. But to your point, yeah, I do think the Cardinals are going to put up some points. They're averaging like, I think right around 20 points. Yeah,
Mm,
21.7 points per game. So they're still able to move the ball in chunks. And I think, to your point, if it's Jacoby Brissett, that might make things a little bit easier for that offense to move the ball.
totally.
So I think 20 points, they're at home. I think they'll make it interesting, but I do think the Packers are just gonna bring too much. And I think it's a game that we see some turnovers finally from the defense because it feels like that has been weeks.
Yeah. Let's hope for that. I love that. 38-20. Okay. Final stamp. Final Packs What She Said stamp on this game.
Lock it in. All right. That is all the time that we have for today's show. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. It's so good to have Perry back. I missed Perry. I love Dusty and Andrew, but I missed Perry.
I missed
You
you
can
too.
you can find us at PWSS Podcast or at Pax What She Said. Perry at Perry_Goldstein. Me at Maggie J Loney. We'll be back with a Cardinals preview, hopefully talking about a 38-20 victory, so we can roll into Monday with smiles on our faces. But that is all the time that we have for today. Thank you so much, and go Pack Go.
Go Pack Go.